Hey guys, tonight we step into a world where steel meets serenity, where the edge of a katana is balanced by the gentle swirl of matcha in a ceramic bowl. You trudge through the misty gardens of feudal Japan, the scent of pine and dew filling your senses, and imagine a warrior pausing, not to fight but to breathe. You probably won't survive this if you try to sit perfectly still for as long as the samurai would. But tonight, that's exactly what we're doing. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and the local time. You never know, your neighbors might be practicing their own tea ceremony nearby. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. And if you are new here, welcome to Sleepless Historian, your bedtime history channel. Tonight's episode is why samurai practiced the tea ceremony to find calm. The first sip of matcha is more than a beverage. It's an invitation. You feel the warmth seep into your hands, the gentle bitterness awakening awareness you didn't know you had. Samurai didn't drink tea merely for taste. They were training their minds to slow, to observe, to find stillness amidst a life dominated by speed, precision, and survival. Historians still argue whether tea truly reached samurai as a practical discipline or as a symbolic cultural refinement, but the effect was undeniable. Calm became a weapon. Quirky tidbit, some accounts suggest early warriors used to carry tiny tea bowls in their armor, like stealthy caffeine bombs, ready for a meditative moment between skirmishes. You imagine a samurai ducking behind a tree, whisk in hand, practicing Zen while the enemy advances. Each breath becomes a lesson, each sip a rehearsal for the mind's battlefield. The gardens, the rustle of bamboo, and the steam curling from the tea remind you that peace is cultivated, not granted. Even warriors must kneel, even heroes must pause, and even amidst chaos there is room for reflection. Tonight you sit with them, tasting calm, learning the quiet power of the ritual, and feeling a connection that spans centuries. The story begins with the arrival of tea in Japan, carried by monks returning from China, delicate leaves tucked into bamboo boxes like precious treasures. You trudge alongside the earliest samurai as they encounter these foreign rituals, curious, skeptical, and yet intrigued by the quiet authority they convey. Tea is more than a drink, it is a bridge, a tiny vessel containing centuries of philosophy, meditation, and subtle ceremony. Historians still argue whether the initial appeal to samurai was spiritual, aesthetic, or merely a fashionable display of sophistication. Either way, the practice begins to seep into the rhythm of warrior life. Quirky tidbit, some legends claim that warriors first learned to drink tea while hiding in the midst of mountain passes, using the ritual to steady shaking hands before ambushing rival clans. You can almost picture them, bowls balanced on knees, whisking furiously while enemies approach, a comical yet earnest image of discipline in action. The ritual, refined over generations, begins as a quiet rebellion against the chaos of battle. Each step, the selection of utensils, the pouring of hot water, the slow whisking, trains attention, cultivating patience and mindfulness. You feel yourself swept along by this precision, noticing that even a single misstep in the tea room could disturb the harmony, much as in combat a single hesitation could spell defeat. Tea becomes a metaphor, a mirror of life's impermanence, and a training ground for emotional resilience. You watch the samurai bow to one another, exchange silent acknowledgments, and understand that the ritual itself is a kind of unspoken dialogue, one of respect, observation, and subtle hierarchy. The practice is deceptively simple, yet profoundly transformative, teaching the warrior to find stillness amid uncertainty. By the end of the day, the steam rising from the tea bowl seems to carry away tension and distraction. You trudge through the shadows of the garden, noticing the way ritual shapes presence, and sense the subtle power of this seemingly humble ceremony. The first step in a lifetime of cultivating calm, before, during, and after the storm of battle. Zen is everywhere here, even if you don't see it at first glance. You trudge along the raked gravel paths, the neat, deliberate patterns, reflecting the mind's potential for clarity, and realize that the samurai adopted tea as a way to train not only their bodies but their spirits. Every movement in the ceremony, from placing the chowan to whisking the matcha, mirrors Zen meditation, focused, present, and deliberate. Historians still argue whether Zen was the driving force behind the samurai tea ritual, or if it was a convenient lens applied later by scholars seeking patterns. But the influence is undeniable. Quirky tidbit: some samurai were said to meditate while balancing on one foot during the tea ceremony, imagining themselves in battle, training their minds to maintain composure under extreme conditions. You can almost see a warrior teetering, whisk in hand, trying not to spill the precious green powder, a humorous but earnest display of discipline. The principles of mindfulness, impermanence, and attention to detail bleed seamlessly into the samurai's martial life. You notice that every gesture, from bowing to sipping, is calculated yet effortless, a dance between precision and serenity. The mind learns to slow, to observe subtle changes, to anticipate rather than react, skills that translate to the battlefield where hesitation or distraction can mean death. Tea becomes a vessel for philosophy as much as hydration. Wabi-sabi, the beauty of imperfection, is celebrated in each rustic bowl, each slightly uneven whisk stroke. You sense the lesson. Life, like tea, is transient, unpredictable, and most meaningful when savored deliberately. The act of drinking slowly transforms into an exercise in patience, reflection, and self-mastery. By the end of the session, even the most battle-hardened samurai feel a shift. You sense it in the way they stand, breathe, and regard the world, calm, grounded, aware. The fusion of Zen and tea teaches that true strength is not just in muscle and sword, but in the mind's ability to find peace amid the storm. Tea became more than a quiet indulgence. For the samurai, it was a prelude to battle, a ritual to sharpen the mind before the chaos of the field. You trudge alongside them, feeling the tension in their shoulders, the way their eyes dart even in the stillness of the tea room. The act of preparing and drinking tea is deliberate. Every pour, every whisk, every bow is a rehearsal for control, focus, and emotional discipline. Historians still argue whether tea actually improved battlefield performance or served more as a symbolic practice, but its integration into martial life is undeniable. Quirky tidbit: some accounts suggest that samurai would sometimes conduct tea ceremonies in full armor, balancing bowls of steaming matcha atop breastplates as a test of steadiness and calm under physical constraint. You can picture them at helmet straps tight, whisking frantically while trying not to spill, a comedic image as hiding a serious purpose. The ritual teaches them to manage fear and impatience. You notice the contrast. Outside, soldiers train with clanging swords and shouted commands, but inside the tea room, the air is thick with quiet, deliberate intention. Every gesture is magnified, every movement rehearsed, cultivating mental clarity that could tip the balance in the next skirmish. Tea also becomes a form of emotional regulation. The bitterness of matcha is a reminder to accept discomfort gracefully, to balance pleasure and restraint. You can almost feel the samurai's pulse, slow with each sip, their breath even out, and their mind sharpen. Even the smallest errors, a drop of powder, a misaligned bowl, are lessons in patience, attention, and humility. By the time the ceremony concludes, warriors emerge, subtly transformed. You sense it in the way they hold their bodies, the steadiness in their gaze, and the quiet confidence that comes from mastering small acts of discipline. The tea ritual, though simple, becomes a powerful tool in the arsenal of mental fortitude, preparing them for the unpredictable chaos of battle without drawing a single blade. The implements themselves, the chawan, chosen, chin, and share, are not merely functional. They carry symbolism that reinforces the samurai's focus and reverence. You trudge through the quiet garden, eyes tracing the curve of a ceramic bowl, the finely carved bamboo whisk, the polished tea caddy, each object designed to channel attention and respect. Historians still argue whether these tools evolved from purely aesthetic intentions or as practical training instruments for precision and mindfulness, but their importance in the ritual is unmistakable. Quirky tidbit. Some tea masters claim that the tiniest imperfection in a bowl's glaze was thought to contain hidden wisdom, encouraging samurai to find beauty in imperfection, a lesson that would translate seamlessly to the chaos of combat. You imagine a warrior inspecting a bowl for 15 minutes, nodding solemnly at a tiny glaze crack as if it whispered secrets of patience. The chawan, warm and grounded in your hands, centers attention. The chasen, with its delicate bamboo bristles, teaches control and rhythm. The share, small yet weighty, reminds you that even subtle movements carry significance. You realize that handling each object is an exercise in presence, awareness, and respect, not just for tea, but for life and duty. These tools also act as mirrors to the warrior's inner state. You can sense anxiety, impatience, or carelessness reflected in how one holds the whisk or pours the water. Conversely, calm, deliberate movements indicate mastery over both mind and body, the very quality that makes a samurai formidable on and off the battlefield. By the end of the session, you notice that even the smallest gestures, tilting a cup, inhaling the aroma, wiping a drop of tea, become exercises in focus, patience, and aesthetic appreciation. The tea implements, humble and unassuming, serve as anchors, guiding the mind toward tranquility and awareness. In this way, the ritual transcends drink, transforming mundane objects into tools of mental and spiritual resilience. The space itself, the chashitsu or tea room, is a silent teacher. You trudge along the narrow, low-ceilinged corridor leading to the room, noticing the deliberate simplicity. Unadorned walls, muted light filtering through paper screens. A single seasonal flower in the tokonoma. Historians still argue whether these design choices were primarily aesthetic, spiritual, or a combination, but the effect is immediate. The room commands attention, slows the pace, and encourages stillness. Quirky tidbit. Some tea masters intentionally placed a tiny imperfection in the floorboards or a slightly crooked beam to remind samurai that life is imperfect, and calm acceptance is a skill to be practiced constantly. You imagine a warrior stepping carefully, almost ceremoniously, over a tiny crack, whispering a silent lesson to himself about patience and observation. Every detail of the room is designed to focus the mind. The muted colors, natural textures, and minimal furnishings and reduce distraction, allowing the samurai to fully inhabit each gesture. You notice how the path into the room, often a low doorway requiring bowing, immediately signals humility and attentiveness, reinforcing the mental state needed for meditation. The Chashitsu's intimacy also fosters social harmony. You can feel the subtle dialogue between host and guest, communicated through glances, gestures, and the arrangement of utensils. Even in silence, hierarchy, respect, and mindfulness are reinforced, and every movement resonates with meaning. By the time the samurai kneel inside, the world outside feels distant, almost unreal. The architecture itself teaches discipline, presence, and awareness, reminding you that space is never neutral. It shapes thought, behavior, and emotion. The tea room is a crucible for calm, turning ordinary actions into deliberate practice, preparing the warrior for both the mental and physical demands of their world. Timing, the rhythm, and seasonality are essential to the tea ceremony. You trudge dogo through a garden alive with cherry blossoms or the subtle rustle of autumn leaves, noticing how every element signals a particular moment, a particular mood. Samurai were acutely aware that tea is not merely an act, but an immersion in the flow of time. Historians still argue whether seasonal awareness was a purely aesthetic choice or a deliberate exercise in attunement to natural rhythms. But the alignment with nature cannot be ignored. Quirky tidbit: some accounts suggest samurai would plan tea rituals around lunar phases, believing that the moon's glow enhanced mindfulness, or at least that was the excuse to sip matcha under moonlight. You picture warriors kneeling in gardens at night, whispering Zen poetry to the stars, whisk in hand, fighting the urge to nod off in the cold. Seasonal flowers, incense, and even the direction of sunlight were considered carefully, each element engaging senses subtly yet intentionally. You notice that observing these nuances requires acute awareness, forcing the mind into presence and fostering a meditative state. The warrior learns to synchronize breath, movement, and perception, skills that serve just as well in battle as in ritual. Ritual timing also trains patience. You can feel it in the deliberate pacing of pouring, whisking, and presenting tea. No hurry, no distraction, only complete focus. Impermanence becomes tangible. Blossoms fall, steam rises, shadows lengthen, and the samurai internalize that life's moments are fleeting, precious, and best appreciated fully. By the conclusion of the ceremony, the practice of seasonal attentiveness instills calm, attentiveness, and a subtle humility. You sense that time itself becomes a partner, not an enemy. A reminder that serenity is cultivated, not seized, and that even the busiest warrior can align with the natural rhythms of life through mindful practice. Movement in the tea ceremony is never accidental. You trudge beside the samurai as they kneel, bow, and pour, noticing the rhythm, the flow, the almost imperceptible adjustments in posture. Every gesture, tilting the tea bowl, holding the whisk, inhaling the aroma, is an exercise in deliberate meditative motion. Historians still argue whether these movements were originally martial training, disguised as ritual, or purely aesthetic refinement. But the effect is unmistakable. Grace, awareness, and focus are honed simultaneously. Quirky tidbit: some warriors reportedly practice the ceremony while balancing on one leg, imagining the battlefield underfoot, blending absurdity with intense discipline. You can picture a certain samurai wobbling, whisk in hand, muttering encouragement to himself while trying not to spill his precious matcha, an early form of moving meditation that doubles as strength and balance training. The flow of the ceremony trains attention to detail. You notice how even a subtle misalignment, a chowan slightly askew, a chasen held at the wrong angle, demands recalibration, cultivating patience and adaptability. Each micro movement becomes a lesson in precision, reminding the warrior that control begins with awareness of the body and surroundings. Mindful movement also helps regulate emotion. You sense that in slow, Deliberate gestures, anger, anxiety, and restlessness dissolve, replaced by measured calm. The mind learns to stay present, to observe without reacting impulsively, to carry focus and composure into the unpredictable chaos of combat. By the end, the samurai emerges subtly transformed. The ritual has trained them to inhabit their body fully, move deliberately, and respond to both challenges and beauty with poise. You realize that this moving meditation, repeated daily, is as vital to their readiness as any sword or armor, preparing both mind and body to face life's battles with clarity, patience, and a calm heart. Tea etiquette mirrors social hierarchy, and in the samurai world, subtle cues convey rank, respect, and loyalty. You trudge into the tea room, sensing the silent choreography of glances, bows, and the careful placement of utensils. Every movement communicates intent and awareness, teaching warriors to read both the ceremony and each other with precision. Historians still argue whether this etiquette primarily reinforced social order or served as a broader exercise in psychological acuity, but its impact on interpersonal skill is undeniable. Quirky tidbit: some samurai would intentionally fumble a whisk or misplace a bowl to test a host's response, gauging patience and discernment while demonstrating humility. You can imagine a warrior offering a crooked chuan with a sheepish nod, silently challenging the ritual while learning its subtle lessons. The ceremony doubles as a training ground for interpersonal awareness. You notice that observing small gestures, eye contact, posture, timing, teaches discernment and emotional intelligence, skills as vital in battle councils as in the quiet tea room. A misplaced gesture or delayed bow could reveal arrogance, anxiety, or inattentiveness, while precise movements signify discipline, respect, and composure. Tea etiquette also reinforces group cohesion. Every participant's awareness of hierarchy, timing, and gesture builds a shared rhythm, fostering harmony even among individuals trained for combat. You sense that this unspoken understanding carries into battle, where coordination, trust, and subtle cues can be the difference between life and death. By the ceremony's end, social awareness is internalized. You feel the quiet power of subtlety. The tea room becomes a microcosm of the warrior world, where discipline, observation, and respect are cultivated alongside calm. Here, lessons in etiquette are lessons in strategy, empathy, and self-control, preparing the samurai to navigate both social and martial landscapes with poise and mindfulness. Philosophy breathes through every aspect of the tea ceremony. You trudge slowly, inhaling the subtle aroma of matcha and incense, noticing how wabi-sabi, the beauty of imperfection and transience, permeates the space. Samurai learn that serenity arises not from perfection, but from acceptance, patience, and awareness of life's fleeting nature. Historians still argue whether these philosophical elements were intentionally cultivated by warriors or later emphasized by scholars interpreting the practice, but the influence on mindset is unmistakable. Quirky tidbit: some tea masters would intentionally introduce a slightly cracked bowl or an uneven flower arrangement to teach lessons about impermanence and humility. You can picture a warrior examining a tilted blossom, nodding solemnly, as if the universe whispered its secrets through a bent stem. Simplicity becomes a guide. Fewer distractions, fewer excesses, fewer unnecessary movements. Every placement of an object, every inhalation of scent, and every careful pour embodies the harmony of function and beauty. You notice the samurai trained to appreciate subtle aesthetics, develop patience, observational skills, and emotional regulation, qualities directly applicable to both combat and governance. The ceremony also conveys impermanence. Steam rises from the tea, flowers wilt, shadows shift, each moment unique and transient. The samurai's awareness of this fleeting quality strengthens resilience and mental presence. You feel the subtle lesson: every action, thought, and decision matters, yet must be embraced without clinging, teaching adaptability and calm in both meditation and battle. By the end, philosophy is embodied, not merely spoken. You sense that the tea ceremony is more than ritual. It's a practice of life itself, cultivating an inner landscape of clarity, humility, and mindful engagement. The warrior's calm is rooted not in avoidance of conflict, but in mastery of perception, acceptance, and presence. Emotional regulation is one of the tea ceremony's most profound benefits. You trudge beside the samurai as they kneel whisking matcha with deliberate slowness, and notice how the ritual channels tension, anxiety, and anticipation into focused awareness. Historians still argue whether these practices were consciously designed to manage fear or simply it evolved naturally from prolonged exposure to disciplined Zen aesthetics, but the calming effect is clear. Quirky tidbit: some samurai reportedly practiced tea ceremonies immediately after intense sparring sessions, believing the ritual would steady a racing heart and sharpen mental clarity, a kind of liquid meditation, caffeine and calm in one. You imagine a warrior sitting cross-legged, still dripping sweat, whisk in hand, silently teaching his mind to settle while the scent of green tea fills the air. Each step, selecting utensils, measuring water, whisking powder, is a training exercise in attention and patience. You notice how even minor errors like an uneven pour or a misaligned bowl invite reflection and subtle emotional recalibration. The ritual cultivates composure, teaching that even small disruptions are opportunities to practice mindfulness. Tea also trains anticipation and acceptance of uncertainty. The samurai's breath aligns with the rising steam, their pulse syncs with the slow rhythm of the ceremony, and they internalize the lesson that calm readiness is more powerful than reactive frenzy. You sense the invisible thread connecting each sip, each gesture, to battlefield resilience, emotional intelligence, and strategic patience. By the ceremony's conclusion, emotional equilibrium is tangible. You feel it in the way the warrior sits, in the steadiness of his hands, and in the clarity of his gaze. The tea ceremony transforms raw impulse into deliberate action, fear into focus, and turbulence into measured serenity, preparing the mind for the unpredictable challenges of both war and life. Stories of famous samurai practicing tea blur legend and history, yet their lessons ripple through time. You trudge beside these figures, imagining warriors like Sen no Rikyu, influenced samurai, kneeling with meticulous care, balancing a lifetime of discipline with a single moment of stillness. Historians still argue whether some accounts exaggerate their devotion to elevate cultural ideals, but the influence on samurai ethos is undeniable. Quirky tidbit: one tale tells of a samurai who supposedly used the tea ceremony to meditate for hours on end, so committed that he once let a minor skirmish pass unnoticed nearby, only realizing it when he rose with unmatched calm. You picture him, whisk in hand, serene while chaos swirled just beyond the garden walls, a comically improbable yet striking testament to focus. Each story highlights a personal mastery of calm, where tea becomes a mirror of temperament and philosophy. You notice that the most disciplined warriors extend the ritual into daily life. Attention to gesture, awareness of surroundings, and measured breathing translate from the tea room to battlefield strategy. Tea rituals also serve as narrative anchors, blending morality, patience, and resilience into legend. You can sense that each ceremonial act reinforces values: humility, attentiveness, and grace under pressure. Even small, seemingly trivial mistakes in the tea room become moral parables, emphasizing the importance of precision, care, and presence. By the end, these stories are less about the drink and more about cultivation of the mind. You feel the quiet echo of their lessons in every gesture, every inhale, every deliberate pour. The legends reinforce the truth that mastery of oneself, not just of sword or strategy, defines a samurai's strength. Tea becomes a cultural bridge, connecting samurai to courtly culture, Zen monasteries, and wider society. You trudge through halls adorned with scrolls and incense, sensing how the ceremony intertwines martial discipline with refined aesthetics. Historians still argue whether this fusion was intentional or evolved naturally, but the result is clear. Tea bridges worlds, warrior, monk, and aristocrat alike. Quirky tidbit: some samurai were rumored to host tea gatherings with poets and calligraphers, attempting to impress guests while secretly critiquing their brushstrokes, an amusing mix of refinement, competitiveness, and disciplined observation. You can picture a stern warrior sipping, quietly nodding, yet mentally grading haikus while maintaining perfect composure. The ritual extends beyond individual calm to social connectivity. Each gesture, each bow, each precise placement of utensils communicates respect, attentiveness, and cultural literacy. You notice that even subtle missteps can ripple through social dynamics, reinforcing the samurai's need for awareness and tact in all interactions. Tea serves as a shared vocabulary, linking personal mindfulness with communal identity. You sense the unspoken dialogue among participants, where observation and subtlety replace overt words, and where calm becomes a measure of character. The practice fosters empathy, patience, and social intelligence alongside inner peace, proving that ritual can be both personal and profoundly social. By the ceremony's close, you realize that tea is a bridge across roles and ranks. You sense how a single shared bowl can unite disparate individuals in harmony, teaching lessons in presence, respect, and interconnectedness. Samurai walk away not only centered, but attuned to the broader world, ready to navigate both social and martial landscapes with balance and poise. Over time, the tea ceremony evolves into a lifelong practice, a constant companion in a samurai's journey. You trudge alongside seasoned warriors who carry the rhythm of tea into every aspect of their lives, from strategy meetings to evening patrols, where mindfulness and composure become second nature. Historians still argue whether this integration was a conscious philosophy or an emergent habit, but the effect on personal discipline is unmistakable. Quirky tidbit: some masters were known to meditate with an empty tea bowl, imagining the whisking motion to maintain focus even when quick-pin tools weren't present, a playful yet deeply effective exercise in mental training. You can picture them, hands mimicking the whisk, eyes closed, serene amidst the bustle of the household, blurring the line between ritual and imagination. The daily repetition of tea cultivates deep neural pathways of focus and emotional regulation. You notice how the body and mind become synchronized through practice. Breath, posture, gesture, and thought all align, creating a steady foundation for decision-making under pressure. The ceremony teaches the resilience, patience, and the ability to maintain equilibrium even in the face of uncertainty. Tea also reinforces humility and reflection. Every bowl, every sip, every imperfect gesture is a reminder of mortality, impermanence, and the ongoing need for self-improvement. You sense that samurai internalize these lessons, carrying quiet strength into battle and governance, embodying a philosophy that extends far beyond the tea room. By the day's end, you see the culmination. A warrior who is calm, attentive, socially aware, and emotionally balanced. The tea ceremony has become more than ritual. It is a lens through which life is approached, a template for mindfulness, strategy, and enduring calm amidst the ever-shifting currents of duty and destiny. The mastery of the tea ceremony marks the peak of a samurai's inner cultivation. You trudge alongside a warrior who has spent decades steeped in ritual, each gesture a reflection of patience, precision, and presence. Historians still argue whether such mastery was accessible to all samurai or only the elite, but the profound discipline is clear. Tea transforms body, mind, and spirit into a harmonious whole. Quirky tidbit: some legendary accounts claim that masters could detect a guest's emotional state by the slightest tremor in the hand or a subtle pause in breathing while holding the chawan, a kind of heightened empathy disguised as observation. You can imagine a master observing, smiling faintly, whisk in motion, reading the room like a battlefield map, simultaneously nurturing calm and insight. The ceremony encapsulates lessons in patience, humility, and emotional regulation. You notice how the slow rhythm, deliberate movements, and awareness of impermanence cultivate resilience, clarity, and empathy, all essential qualities for a warrior navigating life's uncertainties. Tea trains the mind to embrace focus without rigidity, flexibility without chaos, and calm without detachment from reality. Over years, practice fuses habit and philosophy. You sense that what begins as ritual transforms into a lens through which the samurai interprets the world, every encounter, challenge, and decision approached with measured attention, emotional balance, and grounded presence. The tea ceremony is no longer a moment of pause, but a continuous thread weaving mindfulness into every facet of life. By the conclusion of decades of practice, you see the embodiment of calm readiness. The samurai's gaze, it is steady, hands precise, heart measured. The ritual has shaped a life capable of facing chaos, conflict, and beauty with the same unwavering awareness. In the quiet steam rising from the bowl, you sense that true mastery lies not in technique alone, but in the seamless integration of mind, body, and spirit.